All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're talking about a piece of tech that's trying to do something that feels almost impossible in our world: deliver undeniable truth. We're talking about creating a universal layer of intelligence that gives us ground truth location data, especially when all our other systems fail. Let's see how they're pulling it off. So, let me ask you this. What happens when your GPS fails? We've all been there, right? You're driving between huge skyscrapers, the signal drops, and boom, you're flying blind. Or maybe you're out on a trail and your map just gives up. It's annoying, for sure, but what if we're entire industries? That little moment of doubt isn't just an inconvenience. What if it's a full-blown, multi-billion-dollar disaster? And that brings us to our first big idea: the GPS blind spot. This isn't just about your signal getting blocked by a tunnel. Nope. This is about a fundamental weakness in the very systems our entire modern world runs on. Okay, so check out these terms because they really get to the heart of the problem. For a fleet of autonomous tractors, a lost signal causes what's called a synchronization collapse. The whole operation just stops dead in its tracks. For something like carbon markets, any doubt in the data's accuracy creates an uncertainty discount, which basically means the assets are worth less because you can't prove their value. And for a smart city, relying on flaky GPS creates a massive connectivity liability. These aren't just buzzwords, they're incredibly expensive real-world failures. So, if we know satellites aren't 100% reliable, what's the alternative? How do you solve this? Well, this is where our hero technology steps onto the stage. Let's look at how you get perfect positioning even without a single satellite. The solution is built around this concept called inertial dead reckoning. Now, I know, it sounds super complicated, but the idea behind it is actually pretty simple. Imagine you're in a room and it's pitch black. You could still figure out where you are just by keeping track of every single step you take and every turn you make. Well, this technology does the exact same thing, just with incredibly precise internal sensors. It's totally self-contained. It doesn't need to look at anything outside of itself. And this, right here, illustrates the difference perfectly. GPS needs to see the sky. It dies in those urban canyons, and it's useless indoors. Inertial dead reckoning? It's self-contained, so it works absolutely anywhere. But here's the most important part. GPS gives you a picture from space. This system, it provides the ground truth from the ground up. Now, the idea isn't to get rid of GPS. It's to make the whole system bulletproof. And they do that with this three-tier fallback chain. So GPS is still your main signal. But the second it drops, inertial dead reckoning kicks in instantly, so there's no gap. And then, as a final layer of protection, sensor fusion blends all the available data into one single, unbroken stream of positioning. This whole thing becomes less of a feature and more of a mandatory safety standard. Okay, so we get the tech. It's cool, it's robust. But let's talk about the business side. Why is this level of absolute certainty so ridiculously valuable? Well, that's what we're calling the ground truth premium. This is the core insight, the real game changer. This is about taking a simple dot on a map and turning it into an auditable, regulatory-grade asset. You know, it's data that you can actually take to a bank or an insurance company or a government regulator and say with 100% confidence, this is exactly what happened, and this is exactly where it happened. That kind of certainty is worth a lot of money. And this chart just lays it out so clearly. Regular satellite data is always going to get its value chipped away by that uncertainty discount we talked about earlier. There's always a little bit of doubt. But when you can offer validated, ground truth data, you completely erase that doubt. You're not just selling information anymore. You're selling certainty. And for that, you get to charge a serious premium. So how does that premium actually get collected? Well, it looks different in every industry. For a smart city, you might charge per sensor node to keep an eye on green assets, like trees, where GPS can't reach. In the supply chain, maybe you charge per shipment to prove where goods actually came from, their provenance. And for ESG, you could charge per verification event to authenticate things like carbon claims with data that regulators will actually trust. Every model is built around the specific value it creates. You know, the journey of this technology is a pretty amazing story of scale. It started out in this very specific, high-stakes place and just blew up into markets that touch almost everything we do. So it all began in agriculture. This tech was first used to solve that critical synchronization collapse for self-driving tractors out in the middle of nowhere. It also created airtight data for crop insurance claims, which saved farmers and insurance companies millions by proving what really happened on the ground, no matter what the satellite coverage looked like. And then came the pivot. They took the exact same technology that works in a wide open field and realized it creates what they call an urban canyon moat. It becomes the only game in town for getting reliable location data for smart city projects, like monitoring urban heat islands, right in the middle of a downtown area where GPS is totally useless. And just like that, a whole new multi-billion-dollar market opens up. And the expansion just keeps going into ESG and the global supply chain. Here, it delivers what's called a sovereignty premium. By giving you ground truth inside warehouses and ports where signals can't penetrate, it can prove the exact origin and journey of any product. And that is absolutely essential for the transparent supply chains everyone is demanding today. So, this all leads us to the final act. The ultimate vision here isn't just to be another useful tool. It's to become a fundamental, essential layer of our entire economy. And this is the part that gets investors really, really excited. It's the valuation multiplier. The company's story completely changes. It goes from being a niche solution for agriculture to being a provider of critical infrastructure. That shift totally rewrites how the company is valued, justifying much, much higher multiples because it's now seen as essential, universal, and incredibly difficult to replace. And this is the result of that strategic shift. You're looking at huge financial potential, a 5-year revenue outlook of over $38 million. And that's not just some random number. It represents the massive value that gets unlocked when you embed this ground truth technology as a standard across dozens of industries. In the end, it all comes down to this one powerful, simple idea. Space gives the picture. We give the truth. Satellites can show us a snapshot from orbit, but this technology is what calibrates that picture against undeniable on-the-ground reality. It's the piece of the puzzle that's been missing all along. So, I'll leave you with this final thought. From farms to cities to global trade, the need for certainty, for truth, is absolutely everywhere. The only question left is, what's the next billion-dollar industry that's about to be completely transformed once it finally gets access to ground truth?